Everybody, welcome back to the Roadsmiths. And as you can see, today we're going to do something a little bit different because we are not in our RV, we're not on the road, we're in our newly acquired home base. It's been kind of cool. So we're going to do a little bit of cooking for you today. And maybe we should call ourselves the Homesmiths for a bit. Anyway, we're going to do poor man's burnt ends. And it's really interesting and it's really inexpensive. And from what we understand, it's really good. So we're going to roll the intro and be right back. All right, welcome back. So first off, I want to apologize for my voice. We just got back from the Switch It Up Alaska cruise, which was amazing, and we'll have some videos coming out on that pretty soon. If maybe one of them might even be out by the time you see this one, depending upon where we schedule. We're not, super planners on that kind of stuff. But as we talked about the subject, what it implies is we're going to make some barbecue today. And we recently acquired a small Traeger Ranger smoker. I always wanted a smoker and pellet grill, and we finally got one a couple months ago. And if you remember some of the videos, if you've been with us for a little bit, we did a great pork butt on that. Actually, we did two of them, and then we did a barbecue brisket flat, if you will. There's a couple parts of the brisket. And that was pretty good. I think we made some mistakes in that, and I think we know what we did. But I've been watching a lot of videos around making, as they call, poor man's burnt ends. Now, if you've gone to a barbecue place and you see they have burnt ends on the menu, they're always a little more expensive. And that's because it takes a little bit more work and preparation to get those done. Now, you can, if you've got the room for a full brisket, that's great. We don't, nor do we want to spend the money on the full brisket. So we've been seeing some videos on using a chuck roast in order to do that. And that's what we're going to do today. And you can do that a couple different ways. You can do it where you smoke the whole chuck roast, depending upon the size. And that'll take, numerous hours. It could take 5, 6, 7 hours. After it's, reached its temperature, you cube it, you coat it with whatever you're going to coat it with, and then you put it back in the smoker covered for a bit. It takes a long time. We're going to do the easier version of that, and albeit the quicker version of that. And we're going to cube it first, and then we are going to season it, and then we're going to let it rest, and then we are going to smoke it for a couple hours and then get it off, and then we're going to, at that point, coat it with the stuff we're going to coat it with. And quite frankly, I'm not a little sure what that is right now, but we'll show you when we get there. Now, it's interesting. We have an HEB around us, and if you're from Texas or have been through Texas, you know HEB are great grocery stores. As I said before, it's hard to buy a part of a brisket. A lot of places you have to buy mostly the whole brisket. But HEB actually does sell, they'll sell the point, they'll sell the flat, and they'll sell whatever the main part of the brisket is called. And leave a comment below so you can educate me on that. But for the purpose of this video, because not everybody sells just the point. In fact, actually HEB will sell the point already cubed up for you, so it makes it really easy. But again, not a lot of people actually sell it that way, but most everybody sells it as a chuck roast. Now, to be honest with you, I am not a big roast fan per se. My family loves making a pot roast. I can't eat it. I can't eat meat that's cooked in its own juices. It just really tears my stomach apart. But for the purpose of this, we are going to smoke it. So we have got a 3 pound, almost a 3 pound, 2.7 pound chuck roast right here. And we're going to cut that open, get it cubed. Now, we just took it out of the refrigerator. And the reason we did that is it's easier to cube when it's cold. And then what we're going to do is season it up and we're going to let it sit for a bit. So let's get started with this. All right, as you can see here, we've got, it's like I said, about 2.8 pounds. Not huge. And, for Pam and I, it should be a pretty good size. This says prime. And certainly not, you don't have to go with the best cut of it, but we are going to try this and get this opened up right here. Now, one thing about chuck roast, and I'm learning a lot of this, by the way, and we know a lot of RVers that are, huge barbecuers. Ryan, if you're listening, I know you'll probably chime in on this, but the thing about brisket is, and especially point, it has a lot of intramuscular fat. And so that is great for rendering down and obviously the tenderness. Chuck roast doesn't have that as much. They have some intermuscular fat, and they do have a big piece of fat in here. We're going to try and trim some of that out because we don't want to bite into that. So smoking this is going to be a little bit different. Like I said, we're going to cube it first, and then we're going to coat it, and then we're going to smoke it, and then that'll shorten the process down, and then we're going to coat it with stuff and put it back on. So let's get to cutting on this. From what I understand, you want about, they say an inch by inch, an inch cubed, if you will. I'm going to go a little larger than that because I don't want to dry the meat out. So we're going to go a little bit, we'll say maybe an inch and a half. The key is having a good sharp knife to do this. And since we recently moved into our home base here, I haven't found my knife sharpener. So this one's good enough for now. This is actually my favorite knife, by the way. But normally when I start doing stuff like this, I will actually sharpen it right when I start, right before I start cutting, and then rinse it off. So let's get this all cut up here. Yeah, I'm really fascinated with just some of the things that people cook on the smoker. And we're excited to have gotten it, and we have not done ribs yet. We'll do that. And again, as I said, the Traeger Ranger, great little smoker, very portable. Sucker weighs a lot, even though it's portable. But you can't do several racks of ribs on it. It's really probably going to get maybe one rack or something like that on it. So we haven't done that yet, but making a pork butt on it has been great because that feeds a lot of people. And you can do that. You can do that well. Like I said, you can do probably a small, well, we did that brisket flat, and that was probably about the same weight as this. It could have actually been a little bigger. You don't want to crowd the grill, certainly. Like I said, use a sharp knife, and this one could use some sharpening for sure. So getting these cubed up nicely here. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is because you're cubing it, you don't have to, in my opinion anyway, and again, please leave a comment below, you don't have to season it as much as you might if you were smoking the whole roast or, a one contiguous piece of meat. Because you're cubing it, you want to be careful not to over season it because, it's smaller, it's smaller cuts. Not sure what I'm going to do with this piece here. I just hope I don't cut my finger off. So we'll get to that here in a second. So what we're going to do is get this in the bowl. Now, a lot of people will use different kinds of things for binders. Some people don't use binders at all. For pork, a lot of people will use mustard. Mustard and beef to me is just not... Now, I don't know that you actually get a taste on it. So we're going to do a little soy sauce and a little apple cider vinegar because that's going to help break the meat down a little bit as it smokes. As I said, chuck doesn't have as much intermuscular fat, so therefore you don't get as much, it won't be quite as tender. So you want to help break that meat down a little bit. So let's get this in the bowl, and then let's get it seasoned up. All right, we'll start with a little bit of soy sauce over here. Just kind of, like I said, not too much, just a little bit. We don't want this to be, we're not doing beef with broccoli. No, we are doing poor man's burnt ends. So we get a little bit of that going. And then we'll get some of that spray on there as well, just to kind of get a little bit of that vinegar on there. And again, this is more of a binder. This is not really, you're not using this to really, spice or flavor the food per se. A couple things, and this is one of those where, it's religion about what you use on here. And some people will say just use some salt and pepper. Coarse pepper. Some people say use garlic. We've used this before, and it's not sponsored or anything on any of this stuff. And we just happened to get it for the pork barbecue. We liked it, and it's got some salt in it already, garlic and some peppers and things like that. So what we're going to do is we are going to let this sit for a while and get it to room temperature as we get the smoker ready. Now, what I've seen on a lot of the videos is people will smoke it at about 250 to 275. But that's with the whole chuck roast. And because, again, these are smaller, pieces, you can kind of see right here. Kind of see that? That looks kind of gross, but it looks kind of good. It'll look, I know it'll taste great. We're going to cook this lower, maybe about 225 to 230, just because they're smaller pieces. We don't want them to dry out. But we do want to get a decent bark on there as well. And then once we, like I said, once we get the bark on there, we're going to take them out, let them rest, put them in a pan, cover them with, well, we'll just have to tell you what we're going to do when we do it. All right, the meat looks awesome. Let's get it on the smoker. All right, we got those pieces of meat on the grill. Now this is going to be kind of interesting because typically when you cook a larger piece of meat, you're looking for the meat to what they call stall, and that typically gets to about 160 degrees internal, and that's where it just stays there for a little while, and that's when you typically will take it off and then cover it or wrap it, and then maybe even turn the heat up a little bit, and then cook it longer. The whole idea there is you want to get to about 200 degrees internal, maybe a little bit higher, and that typically is where you get all the fat rendered out. Creates that tenderness of a piece of meat that isn't quite tender to begin with. So because these are smaller chunks, we're going to have to monitor these really closely. So we're going to set a timer for about an hour. We're going to see how they do. We'll probably spray them for a little bit. My guess is we'll start getting a little bit of bark, or at least a little dryness and crust on the outside. We'll spray them a little bit more, monitor the internal temperature of one piece. I picked the largest piece of meat that's out there. And then let's just kind of see how that goes. So we'll get back to you in a little bit. All right. It looks like they're done in terms of just being smoked. So now we got to get them to where we're going to sort of reconstitute some of the tenderness back in there as well. I kind of tasted one right off the grill, and to be honest with you, it tastes a little bit like beef jerky. So it's not as dry and crunchy as beef jerky, but it had sort of that flavor. So now we want to get moisture back in. So as I mentioned earlier in the video, I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to use. I kind of think I did, and I just was thinking about it a little bit more. And again, this is one of those where, it doesn't really matter, right? It's really to your liking. But what I have seen a couple people do is we're going to put a couple chunks of butter in here, probably for that amount of meat. I don't know. We're not going to go heavy on the butter. We'll go probably about 2 tablespoons or so. Yeah, let's make it 3. We'll go 2.5 on that. We are going to drizzle some honey in here as well. And I am going to use some broth now. I'm sure I'll get a comment below in it. I didn't have any beef broth. I thought I did. We're still trying to get situated here, but I am going to use just a little bit of chicken broth. So don't give me crap about it. It is what it is. Just again, we're just trying to get some moisture back in here. So we'll put a little bit, I don't know. I'm not a big person on like measuring recipes. I just kind of go with what I think. So we've got some butter. We're going to put some honey in. Hope I have enough here as well. And we'll just get some honey put in here. Actually, I'll have to let that kind of get towards the top. And then we're going to just put some basic barbecue sauce in here as well. Not a lot. I don't like a lot of barbecue sauce and stuff. But again, you're just trying to get some moisture back in. And yeah, that's probably all the barbecue sauce we have here actually, but that'll be enough. I have some more in there, a little different brand and flavor, and then we're going to get some honey in here, and then we'll just kind of mix this up a little bit. We're going to cover it, and we're going to get back on the smoker, and I'm thinking, and I turned it down to about 210, because again, you really, at this point the meat's done. You want it to get to about 200 internally just to, get all that fat rendered out. Of course, we're introducing some fat back into it with the butter. I almost forgot, a little bit of brown sugar in here as well. Again, we are looking for kind of a sweet taste on these burnt ends. So I'm doing about, we'll call it a good heaping tablespoon of brown sugar in here. So let's get that all mixed up, and let's get this wrapped and then back on to the grill. All right, so it's all done. 4 hours later, 2 hours on the grill, let it, get that good bark on there, and then 2 hours covered, let it get some of that moisture back in there. So I'm going to grab a paper towel, and then we're going to bite into one of these right here. So let's see, we'll take this little morsel. They call it meat candy. I'm not sure. So just feeling it, it feels sort of tender, not as tender as maybe I thought it would be watching some other videos, but here we go. Let's check it out. Actually, except for the piece that just fell, it's really good. If you can see that. And it's very, okay, there we go. There we go, that's better. Yeah, that's actually really good. You want to take a bite? Pam just showed up, so she was out shopping, doing stuff, doing that stuff, and I was doing the cooking, so we're going to enjoy this. Last thing I want to say, Ryder Cup is coming up. Playing at Bethpage Black in my home state of New York. And I've played that golf course before. It's awesome. It's extremely difficult. So go USA. And we'll catch you on the next cooking or RVing video, whatever it is that we do these days.
Oh, this is good. And look, it has a pink ring on it.